Before I give the floor for Dr. Paya, you are please open your camera for a group photo, and then please make sure that your microphone are turned off. Please.
Thank you. Shukran.
Okay, let's just take
Assalamu
the.
alaikum, everybody. And
Yes.
I will try.
If you allow us a few minutes for a group photo, and then you can.
Yeah,
proceed.
no problem.
Yeah.
But people have to show their face.
Yeah.
For 1 minute.
If they're interested. Now the floor is yours, Dr. Paya, please.
Okay, thank you. I hope I can share my presentation before it working. Yes. Okay. Everybody can see
It's clear.
my screen? Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so, well, thank you for my presentation, for the presentation you do regarding my career. As you know, I work on Camel for a long time now. I cannot count in years, but in decennial now. And I was confronted, I'm vet, and I was confronted to one of the most important diseases of camel. It is trypanosomosis. And personally, I contribute to some epidemiological survey regarding this disease. And I try here to make an overview about this epidemiological aspect due to the infection by Trypanosoma evenzi in camel. And we'll make a focus on the Middle East and Arab Gulf region, as it is the mandate of cabinet. I will present now some element. Just to recall that trypanosoma is a blood parasite, but you have it's a large family, and you have a different type of parasite, a different type of trypanosomosis in the world. And in the map to the left side of my screen, it is a different type of trypanosomosis for animals. It's mean some trypanosomosis are transmitted by tsetse fly, that it is in the red in the map. And especially Trypanosoma vivax, congolense, brucei, and simiae. You have also some trypanosomosis which affect mainly the horses, and which is Trypanosoma equiperdon, which is in purple in the map. And you
please,
have
please silence your mics, please.
Sorry?
No, I'm taking to the other to silence their mics because there is echo, you know.
Okay, sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay, and you have two types of trypanosomosis which are not transmitted by tsetse fly, especially the trypanosomosis, which is affecting the camel, is transmitted by different flies, we will see later, and the responsible of the parasite, it is the Trypanosoma evenzi. Okay, and it is in the yellow here in the map, and you can see there is some overlapping between this yellow, especially in the old world, between this yellow part of the map and the distribution of the camel in the world. So it means there is a very strong, important overlapping between the camel territoire and the Trypanosoma territoire, Trypanosoma evansi. So it explains that it is important parasite for the camel. Just to recall that there is no tsetse fly responsible for vector as a vector of Trypanosoma evansi, because tsetse fly is living in very humid area. But other vectors are responsible for the disease. You have here some of the species, but the most important are Tabanidae. But in Tabanid, you have more than 4,000 species, different species of Tabanid. You have Hippobocinae, we have 200 species, and you have Stomoxinae, as the stomachs, 44 species. So it means that this parasite, Trypanosoma evansi, can be can be carried by a wide quantity, high biodiversity of the insects, and all these insects are biting insects. I said there is no tsetse fly, but actually, there is an expansion of the camel farming, and maybe we can be afraid that in the future, if the expansion of camel is reaching some very humid area, especially in Africa, maybe it's not forbidden one day that we can find tsetse fly transmitting Trypanosoma evansi. That is a risk. Okay, I'll show you a map regarding the overlapping between camel countries and the distribution of Trypanosoma evansi, but the dissemination in other countries is not completely near. Just to recall that in some years ago, in 2006, there was importation of contaminated camels from Canary Island to France. It was in 2008, sorry. And the Canary Island, it is here, it is belonging to Spain, but it is just in front of the south of Morocco. And there was camels. There was around 4,000 camels in Canary Island, and it is the main source of camel for Europe, because we cannot import camel from other parts of the world. We can import from Spain because they belong to the Schengen space, and there is no sanitary barrier with Spain. So we can import camel from Canary Island, but even in that case, we import some contaminated camel, and we have described with other scientists from CIRAD the first outbreak of Trypanosoma evansi in camel in the metropolitan France in 2008. One camel died by this disease, and unfortunately, the farmer has also 500 sheep in this farm, and we had to take blood on the sheep, on the camel, but also on dog, because we know the dog can be contaminated. And we have found some stomachs which is able to transmit the disease to the camel in France. By chance, in France, we have winter time where all the stomachs died, and finally, the disease has disappeared, but the risk of contamination of camel in other parts of the world is not completely nil, as we can see with this example. So I recall rapidly the symptom of this disease. Here you have a photo of a camel. It is in Niger, which was affected by trypanosomosis. And globally, you have animal with presenting loss of appetite, weakness, sometimes paresthesia, You have the lymph node, we can be swollen. You have anemia, you have the mucus, we are very pale. You can have a lacrimation edema also, especially a declive edema. You can have dual and starting coat, digestive troubles, nervous trouble, sometimes abortion, but the main symptom is cachexia, paresthesia, and in some severe cases, you can have death. So the camel can die. You have some chronic or some acute phase. So, but when you see this symptom, there is no really pathognomonic symptom. It means there is no specific symptom to trypanosomosis. So it means that to make epidemiological survey, you need to have a good diagnosis of trypanosomes, and this diagnosis must be confirmed by laboratory examination. And now I will show you what are the tools that we are as epidemiologists to make the study of this disease. So for epidemiological studies, we need a convenient diagnosis, and we have different tools for the veterinarian and for the epidemiologist. The first tool, it is a paraclinic examination, but we have seen that the symptoms are not characteristic. So it means we have to make the blood examination. We can take blood and to try to find the parasite in the blood. We have antibodies detection by ELISA test. We can have also antigen detection. It means the presence of the parasite itself by PCR, or detection of the immunoresponse of the animal. It means when the parasite is going in the blood, there is an immunoresponse, and this immunoresponse we can test by different tests like immunoglobulin or CAT test, which is one of the most famous tests. Well, I just want to present rapidly these different tests that we use for epidemiological survey. Paraclinical diagnosis, the most paraclinical tools that we use is a measure of hematocrit, because the hematocrit decrease in case of contamination by trypanosoma. But of course, hematocrit is not a specific diagnosis. You can have a low hematocrit in case of anemia, but anemia can be provoked by different type of disease. So it's not really a specific tool. Of course, we can make direct observation in the fresh blood, microscopic observation. Usually, we use stain-thick film by coloration of GIMSA, or you can have also fix or stain blood smear or lymph fluid by fixation with methanol. You know, the concentration of the parasite in the blood usually is not very strong. So for that, we have some hematocrit centrifuge technique, and we can observe the parasite after concentration. The problem that it is difficult to find sometimes the parasite, because it's easy to find if we are in phase of invasion of the blood by the parasite, but sometimes it's a little bit difficult to find the parasite. Even it is present, the animal is sick, but the parasite can be difficult to see. Usually, the most common paraclinical diagnosis is a good smear. And here, you know, to find the parasite inside, we need to make a properly good smear, as I show you in the photo upstairs here. But, you know, there is different type of good smear. We are not properly prepared here in the different slides that you can see. We need really to be careful to see, to have the good density of the drop to find the parasite inside after coloration. So another possibility is a multiplication in vivo of the parasite by inoculation in mice or in rats. That it means we can make in vivo diagnosis if the mice when you inject the serum of suspected animal in the mice, the parasite can multiply in vivo, and then after you can see the blood of the mice for different type of trypanosoma, but the problem is that it is not specific to Trypanosoma evensi. Of course, we can use ELISA test, which is a common use, but is little bit longer, and you need to have a good equipment for that. You can use also DNA amplification that now in many laboratories we have this equipment, this device to identify the parasite. You identify the DNA, the kinoplastic DNA or the nuclear DNA of the parasite by this method. And this is really specific. And you can have a very clear result regarding the infestation of the animal. But if we make a review of these different methods of diagnosis, you know, the clinical diagnosis, it is good for suspicion only. Paraclinical diagnosis also, and differential diagnosis is only give you a suspicion of the disease. To have the confirmation of individual contamination, you need to make a laboratory detection. And as we have seen in the screening of the review of these different diagnoses, their role in epidemiological study can vary. For example, for microscopic observation, we have the problem that the sensitivity is very low. But if you find the parasite, of course, it's sure, but not necessary to find the parasite in the blood. PCR is good because a good sensitivity, better than the microscopic observation, and it is a high specificity. It means with PCR we can we can miss the infestation, but if you find, you be sure that it is almost sure that it is a trypanosomosis. The problem of PCR that is little bit expensive for laboratory and for the survey, and the response can be delayed because you need to use equipment in the laboratory and so on. The detection of immune response is interesting because it is very adapted to studies on the field studies, and it is adapted for individual and for small-scale study easily. But the sensitivity and the specificity are medium. It's good for field test, but we must be careful with the result with CAT test. Of course, the best one is the ELISA test for the sensitivity. Also the specificity is medium. It is adapted to epidemiological study and follow-up. It's little bit less easy than CAT test, of course, a little bit more expensive also, and you need to have trained staff for that. But it is very interesting to use for epidemiological survey. But you know, when you see all these aspects, you know, if I make a meta-analysis myself here regarding the prevalence in different countries of Africa. As you see the country to the left side of the graph, and you can see the different methods were used and the different prevalence were measured. And you can see high variability according, of course, to the country, but also according to the method laboratory used. So the question is, what is the true prevalence? And it is not easy at all to know what is the true prevalence regarding this disease. I will give you an example in Egypt. It was a study was being done some years ago by using different method. There was four method was used: Giemsa stained blood smears, hematocrit, CAT test, and PCR. And you can see the prevalence in the same sample of camel was quite variable, because with CAT test we have 43% of the camel were positive. With PCR we have almost 57%. Hematocrit only 6.2%, and with stained blood, with blood smear, we found parasite only in 4% of the camel. So you see the difficulties that we have for epidemiological survey to know what is the exact prevalence of the disease. So now, if we look the epidemiological survey, we want to know, okay, the prevalence of the disease and the risk factors. I just recall you what is the definition of the risk factor, because people think it is easy to know. Normally, a risk factor is the characteristic of the environment, of the farming practice, or of the animal, which increase the probability of the disease incidence. So the epidemiological survey, especially the analytical survey, aims to find what is the characteristic of the farm or of the animal, which increase the prevalence of the trypanosomosis. But we have to make a difference between marker and factor of risk, and there is a lot of confusion in many publications between risk and marker of risk. A risk matter is a parameter we cannot modify. It means a parameter of the environment or of the individual we cannot manage. For example, the climate. I know there is a climatic change due to the human, but it is a long term. But in short term, you cannot change the climate. You cannot change the rainy season or the dry season. You cannot change the breed of the animal. You cannot change the age of the animal. So that is a risk marker. Risk factor is a parameter which is modifiable by the human. It means the prophylaxis, for example, the practice of prophylaxis, that it is a risk factor. The curing practice also, if you have sick animal, you sell them, that it is also a practice. It is a risk of factors. And unfortunately, in mainly papers, there is a confusion between the both. So when I speak about risk factor, in fact, it is risk marker. So now I will give you some example of epidemiological survey which has been achieved in the Gulf countries, in the Middle East. And in fact, when I made I prepare these slides, I have some difficulty to find a lot of studies. There was not so much studies on regarding trypanosomosis, even if it is a very, very common disease. That is an example of trypanosomosis in Oman. It was, in 2023, very recent. It was a survey of antibodies and the risk among dromedary camel in three regions, 9 wilayas of Oman. It includes 45 camel farms, and globally it includes 425 samples of camel. And the diagnosis was made with CAT test so by the immune response. And the overall seroprevalence, when almost 20%, it means 1 camel on 5 was positive. I don't say it was sick. I say it was positive. You have an immune response. But there was a wide variety between the wilaya, and there was location effect, which was significant. Huh? And regarding the risk factor who has been tested, it is a higher prevalence. It was strange, but on the tick-free camel, on racing camels, and on camel less than 5 years old. It means there is an age effect, significant age effect, a significant use of camels. The racing camel was more affected, but racing camel are also young animal. I don't know if it is not a confusion parameters. And higher seroprevalence on the tick-free camels, but probably it is also the racing camel who are more treated against ticks. So it's difficult to know if the higher prevalence in this category of animals are really convenient or not. But it is one of the elements which has been done in Oman. And another by the same author, another survey was done in Oman on only 3 wilayats that I show you on the map here, but on a large quantity of camel, because there was 4,364 camel which has been sampled. And they use for, I don't speak about this, but they use a specific method for detecting risk factor is a binary logistic regression. Binary logistic regression, it is a statistical method which tests the presence or the absence of the parasite. So you have a binary response, the parasite is present or not, and you have a logistic regression which allow to detect the factors linked to the presence of the disease. And the overall seroprevalence, you see, is 38%. It's been more than the former one. It's been more than 1/3 of the camel are affected, but still here it is with CAT test. It is not PCR or ELISA. So, as you have seen before in Egypt, it could be higher in that case. There is a location effect. You can see it's a change from 35% to almost 50%. Okay. There is a sex effect, but here the authors did not found any age effect. There is no difference between young and older camel, but there is a sex effect with more, if I remember, more trypanosomosis in females than in male. Okay, another study in Oman also here, also in context and only on 388 camel, and the risk factor investigated also by binary logistic regression. They have found a location effect, so that everybody agrees that there is some effect due to the location. There is an age effect. There is an effect due to the presence of tick, but no effect of deworming, of the fly control, of the presence of the ruminant, or from abortion. So it means, you know, the main risk factors or risk marker is the age, but this factor is not observed every time. What is observed every time is a location effect. But what is a location effect? The location effect is something which include the feeding, include the microclimate condition, which includes the mobility of the animal, So it's difficult to say this region, it is a risk factors, but inside this region, there is some factor who explain that, for example, in the case of Oman, al-Buraimi has a prevalence which is very high. What is the characteristic of al-Buraimi? And I think we need to have more deep epidemiological survey to know what is the difference between all these locations. Regarding the age effect, some research shows that the young animals are more affected. Some say the adult, and here you can see that the lower incidence, prevalence was for young adult animal. So age effect is something probably linked to confusion effect with other. I don't know what was the age composition of the different location. Another study also still in Oman, by Kalafala, it was not an epidemiological survey, it was a work on the biometrical and morphological description of the parasite. And they make a direct examination of 500 camels. It means they are looking for the presence of the parasite in the blood. And you see that overall prevalence was very low compared to the prevalence detected by cat test, only 2.6%. So, and they have found here a big difference according to the year. I don't know what is the origin of this annual variability, probably, but we must look that probably it could be linked to the the importance of the rain. And sometimes you can have more important trypanosomosis when you have rain, because the rain is a favorable season for the multiplication of the vector, especially the biting flies. So now some research in Saudi Arabia. Recently, we had the publication on the epidemiological aspect of camel trypanosomosis in Saudi Arabia, which has been done on more than 11, almost 12,000 camel in 19 studied place. Used with cat text and with parasitological examination. And you can see a high variability according to the region. There was less in the eastern region than in the central and western region of the country. And the big difference in the prevalence according to the method used, because the direct examination is only less than 1%, but with cat test is almost 40%. I recall that the cat test, it is measuring the immunoresponse, is not measuring the presence of the parasite. And you can see, according to the risk factor, we can see that the higher prevalence, almost 50%, it is in the vet clinic and in the camel market, less in slaughterhouse and less in the field. So that is the bias, because in vet clinic, you have, of course, animal with a symptom of disease. So it is not a surprise to find a higher prevalence in vet clinic. And in camel market, you have probably also a part of the animal where sell because the farmer want to kill the animal for different reasons. But you can see here there is a tentatively to find some risk factor linked to the specific place where you find the animal. It's not in the Gulf country, but it is interesting to show this result. It is a risk factor detected in Iran. In Iran, there was a survey in different regions or so, and you can see a big difference between the 3 regions of Iran. And the authors, they try to find the rainfall, and you can see Of course, with 3 points, it's difficult to say there is a correlation, but we can see that the rainfall, where the prevalence is low, the rainfall is very low, contrary to the two other regions. And it means that we have an effect of environmental humidity, which can explain the part of the difference between location. But in the same time, this study did not detect any sex or gender effect, only a location effect. And in this also in this study, but they use a chi-square test only. At the rivers, they found an age and gender effect, but also a location effect. And you can see a difference between the north, the center, the south of the country, difference between adult and young with a low level before 2 years and before 4 years, and a high level, high prevalence in female compared to male. So, and they use here only blood examination. So it's difficult, so in that case, to find really something which is completely available for everywhere. In Saudi Arabia, that it is myself, I contribute to one epidemiological survey in Saudi Arabia, the center of Saudi Arabia, and we try to see the correlation between the abundance of flies and the prevalence of the disease with cat test. And we can see here the relative monthly abundance in percentage of flies and of mosquitoes during the year between February and October. Okay, and you can see a peak in March and April, which corresponding to some place where there was a high rainy at that time. And you can see that the prevalence by cat test, the maximum was observed just after this peak of flies. It's been April and May, starting from April and up to May. So it is very interesting to see there is a correlation between the rain and the higher prevalence, even with cat tests, of the disease. And we have tried to see also the abundance of flies and mosquitoes in different places, water station, people residence, open range, cactus farm, control, that is a control, irrigation area, control, it was a laboratory, a camel's cow shed, and sheep pens. And you can see the abundance of flies. It is close to the house and close to water station where you have more residual humidity. It's a risk of factors important, and maybe one of prevention is not to put the camel close to humid area. Another survey that I done in Saudi Arabia by multivariate analysis, I try to test the different parameters, which is a breed, it is a moving, it is a treatment by antibiotic, antiparasite, anti-trips, clinical sign, and the age and sex and lactation. Okay, and you can see a very high difference by cat prevalence, very high difference, and some are significant between these different aspects. And one element was interesting, that the prevalence is especially high when the camel are urban moving or desert indoor, and very low when they are desert moving. There is some difference also, but this is obvious. You can see that the prevalence is higher in camel treated with anti-trips. It's not because they are treated against trips that there are more trips, it's the reverse. Because they have trips, farmers, they treat the animal, of course. And emaciation and general clinical sign are more linked to the high prevalence, and non-lactated female had also higher prevalence than young male or adult male and lactating female. Well, and one element, it was the breed. And the breed in Saudi Arabia are distinguished by the color of the coat. Shall we say there is a different effect of breed or different coat color effect? As you can see, the lowest prevalence are with animal having dark coat color, and the higher prevalence with the camel having light color coat color. So we know that the flies, especially the fly, have a view which is different for the other animals. And especially there I recognize some color and some colors I did not recognize easily. So maybe because it has been studied for for tsetse fly, we know that the tsetse fly are sensitive to some color of the coat of the animals they have to bite. So probably there is something to manage here. There is an effect of coat color. Well, I think arrive at the end of this presentation. My conclusion, it is first, we have a high variability of the prevalence according to the diagnosis test, as you can see. So if we make epidemiological study, if we have a lot of money, I think it's better to use very accurate and very specified tests like ELISA test or PCR. If you don't have so money, CAT test is sufficient, but CAT test, you have seen, it is a tendency to overestimate the prevalence of the disease. Very often in the study, there is a confusion between the herd level and animal level. Okay, the animal can be negative or positive, but if you find a high prevalence in some herd and low prevalence in some other herd, it means you have risk factors which is linked to the herd. It means to the location or to the farming practice. If you look at the individual level, you can have an effect due to the age, to the gender, or to the breed, or to the coat color. So we have to really to make the difference between the herd level and animal level in statistical and epidemiological survey. There is a high variability, I don't speak so much about it, but there is a high variability of the statistical method used to detect the relationship between the factors and the disease. Chi-square test, logistic regression, multivariate analysis, different methods are used. And here, I think we need really to test different statistic methods to show if there is a connection between the factors and the disease. There is also interaction between the environmental condition, the humidity, the water resource, the abundance of biting flies, and necessarily the prevalence of the disease. I recall the importance of prevention. We need now we have a good medicine against trypanosomosis, and it's important to make prevention. But the prevention is not only the medical treatment, the prevention is also against flies, of course, to protect the animal from the biting and to avoid the animal to be close to humidity and to water resource. And also, we don't have any data or any, I don't have seen it anyway, on the role of other species as reservoir. We know that the small ruminant can be affected. What about the cattle? Of course, in the Middle East, there is no too much cohabitation with cattle, but there is cohabitation with small ruminants. What about the horse? The horse is sensitive to Trypanosoma evansi. So there is no data regarding all these aspects. So as you can see with my presentation, for the scientists, there is a wide possibility to make other epidemiological study to better understand this disease. I thank you for your attention.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Faye. I think indeed it is magnificently and well-crafted lecture and slideshow. I think it certainly would contribute to enrich our knowledge and to draw these dots from the to the important thing you highlighted that still needs further or merits further research. And you raise a very important question in epidemiology and prevention that deserve to be subjected to detailed research work so as to put an answer to this important question. I think it will also ignite hot debate between scientists that to study further the risk factors and risk markers you spoke about, and to come up with developing more efficient prevention strategies. Because understanding of risk factor and risk markers will be reflected in the way risk is managed, and also in the communication risk plans with the farmers and other people who are working with animals. Thanks a lot. And now the floor is open for our dear colleague to, if they have any question. You are welcome.
Oh,
Please raise your hand or go ahead for your question. Ala? Any question, please?
or you can write it if you cannot. You can write it.
Okay, you spoke also, Dr. Faye, about the efficiency of the diagnostic test and the relevance of the diagnostic test to in different countries or in different situations. But you know that one of the characteristic feature of trypanosoma is that fluctuating parasitemia, and sometimes there is a high parasitemia, and sometimes it disappears. There is a fluctuation and ups and downs. Is that a factor that can limit and also the efficiency of blood testing for the blood smears, for example? You said that in one of your slides there is a 4.1 prevalence revealed by Gims stain, and when we come to the PCR, it is 56%. There is a very big difference. Is that can be ascribed to this fluctuating parasitemia?
Yeah, so parasitemia, it's not so for trypanosoma. The parasitemia has a cycle, and sometimes you cannot see the parasite in the blood because it is in lymph node, or it is and then after we have some chronic aspect of the disease with the parasite which is staying in the lymph node, for example. And when the animal has some decrease in immunity for one reason or another one, because there is a cross reaction with the virus, suddenly you can see the parasite going in the multiply in the blood, and in that case you can see in the blood. But in some case you cannot see in the blood, but the animal is sick. He has and even there is some. I did not speak about it, but one case has found the parasite in the cephalorachidine liquid, which is difficult to find it, of course. But there was one or two publications in Germany, I think, if I remember, with looking the parasite in the cephalorachidine liquid in animals who are sick, but they don't have the parasite in the blood and in the lymph. So you see the problem of trypanosomosis that when you use a smear blood, we are not necessary to find the parasite correctly.
Exactly. Thanks, Faye. Again, the floor is open for our dear colleagues, so if they have any question.
So it means it's clear.
Yes, of course. It's a positive sign that everything is understood and you left nothing ambiguous. And also, Dr. Faiz, there is, also a characteristic increase in immunoglobulins, hyper gamma immunoglobulinemia, like IgM. It's considered characteristic for the disease in certain countries, but not in other countries.
But it's not specific.
Yeah.
It's not specific. That is a problem. It's like hematocrit, It can, we can have a suspicion, but it's not really specific. And regarding specificity, ELISA is the best one.
Yes. It is also look as if it paradoxically compared with that the parasite cause immunosuppression, and also at the time there is hyperimmunoglobulinemia. That means the pathology of trypanosomiasis itself, it is not easy to have so many areas to be highlighted more to put up a very good and efficient control strategies.
There is one question here. Can the transfusion in race camel could be a reason in racing camel? I would say yes, it's possible. It's a risk, if you make a blood transfusion to a camel, you must be sure that the blood was completely clear. But as we can see that it's difficult to find the parasite sometimes in the blood, the risk is not completely nil. But I'm not accustomed with racing camel and about the practice, but it could be interesting to see, for example, if the prevalence is higher in racing camel receiving transfusion compared to racing camel not receiving any transfusion. It is a survey that we can do, in Emirates or in the Gulf countries. That is possible to detect if there is a difference between the animal.
Yes. Any question? Still, the door is open and the floor is open. And meanwhile, Dr. Faye, can you elaborate more for this zoonotic potential for the trypanosomiasis? Is there any further studies on that, or?
There is one question regarding zoonotic transmission for human. At my knowledge, there is one case in the literature which has been described of transmission to human. I think it is in India, but I think in India it has been described, but one case. Really, if it is a zoonotic aspect, is very, 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 very rare. And I would say exceptional. And for my opinion, we have really to confirm that this case is true or not, if it is Trypanosoma evensi. So, at my knowledge, we cannot exclude completely the zoonotic aspect, but the risk really is almost nil. Because as far as I know, trypanosomosis is apparently very common in camel. When people, they told me, what is the main disease in camel? I can say, I know it is mange, it is trypanosomosis, and it is the calf diarrhea. Okay, that's the three main disease in camel, in the world, I mean at the world level. That's a three main disease. If trypanosomosis is a very important disease, probably if it is zoonotic, we will have a lot of cases in human, but only one time it has been described. Can you give more information about prevalence of the camel treated with antitrypsin KSA? That is a good question, but I cannot answer because I don't know. If you treat animal, it depends on the type. You have different treatment. I don't speak about the treatment. It was not my purpose. But according to the treatment, there is different molecule which are used. At my knowledge, one of the best molecule, it is a similar melasomine, it was from Merial before, I don't know now, that it was very efficient. And I know with this molecule, you can clean sick animal. That it is proved that if you make this treatment, you can clean the animal completely. But it depends on the type of molecule you use, because we know there is some resistance to some molecule which has been used for many years now. I don't know if there is resistance to melastormine. Maybe, I don't know, but I don't have seen. So I don't know the literature, all the literature, of course, but I don't have seen any paper regarding the resistance to melastormine for the moment. But maybe it's existing, but I don't know. Another question is, as we know, there is no vaccine against trypanosoma because change the surface to avoid the immune response. Do you think they can develop one? What is your opinion? I know some people are working on possible vaccine against protein. I don't know. For the moment, we did not succeed, but the research is still working on it. I know some colleagues in Sierra working on it. They can answer better than me about especially the methodology to use to make vaccine. It is one way where people are working, but for the moment we did not succeed.
If you allow me, Faye, the question is coming from Mahra. Mahra is a veterinary student. I think she's a good example for the future veterinarian who is very interested in the go further in this line of research. Thanks, Mahra, for your question. And you can go to the other question. Abdi Muhammad.
Good. Welcome in the club of the young scientists working on camel.
Yeah.
And I hope you will succeed in your research, especially on this aspect.
Yes.
Is a possibility of transmission between species? Yes. There is a possible transmission between species. It has been published some paper on it. The question is, it's not a direct transmission. It is a fact that the biting flies, when they are in the same environment, they bite the camel and they can bite a sheep or goat or another animal inside and inject the disease, the parasite. So it is not a direct transmission, of course, from the camel to another animal. But if they are in one environment, if there is a contaminated biting fly, they can, of course, bite different type of animals. But here also, there is some research which shown something very interesting, not for Trypanosoma infancy, but for the other trypanosomosis, especially transmitted by tsetse fly. We know that if the tsetse fly, the tsetse flies, they take blood on animal for their first meal. When they start their life, adult life, they bite one animal. If this fly bite, I don't know, a crocodile or a gazelle, antelope, they will looking less cattle or sheep than another crocodile or other antelope. It means there is, we call it in French, I don't know, impregnation, I don't know I don't know the name in English. It means you have, it's like the people, when you spend your life to to eat when you are young capsa. When you are adult, you like to eat capsa. There is something which is looking for what you have eaten for the first time in your life. You are looking for all
You
your
mean
life.
impressions, huh?
Yeah, and impregnation, and imprint. Okay, thank you, because I see somebody give me the name in English, imprint.
Yes.
And probably it's possible that some flies have the same the same metabolism. They start to bite camel. Maybe, I don't know. They prefer to bite camel all their life and not to bite a sheep. But it is not 100%. But there was an experiment we have done on tsetse fly, and we have shown that the imprint is very important on tsetse fly. I don't know for the other flies.
Thanks, Faye, for this very illustrative answers to the questions. And I think with this, we conclude our webinar.
Thank you.
Thanks again to our outstanding scientist, Dr. Faye. And we are looking forward to have you with us in more scientific events in the future on trypanosomosis or other aspects of camel health, the important aspect of camel health. Because you spoke always about how to improve, how to camel farming in the region as as an alternative or as a contributing factor for the food security in general in this region. Thanks all the colleagues who attended and contributing with their questions. And thanks again, Bernard, and see you in our upcoming webinar. I think we are going to speak also about MERS corona in the coming webinar, and we will distribute the invitation in time. Thanks a lot, and goodbye.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for everybody.
Thank you. Bye bye.
You're welcome. Bye bye.